For over 500 years, the war between sects has raged unabated. The Sabbat's aggressive tactics have both worked in their favor and been a catalyst for their potential downfall. Last week, we discussed the history of the diabolical collective known as the Sabbat into the 20th century. In this episode, we'll take a look at the forking path of the Sabbat in the modern-day world of darkness. And we'll also explore the culture, rites, and divisive nature of the Sword of Cain. From Shovel Party to Polygrond, I'll cast sunlight on the most hated and misunderstood monsters stalking the night. To find out your vinculum, roll 2d10. For the most part, the World of Darkness story ended in the early 2000s with Gehenna. For more on that, watch my History of the World of Darkness series, linked below. In the final nights, turmoil and constant change typify the Sabbat more than ever. The younger, more mobile sect has grown into a true threat to the Camarillah's stilted, crumbling influence. Hold on a second there, dear chum. It might not have been all kittens and roses for the kindred during the time of Gehenna, but I'd be remiss if I didn't explain some of the new faces popping up in this loathsome sect right before its fiery end. Many new and strange bloodlines joined the Sabbat in these final nights. First, the Blood Brothers, a ritualistically created bloodline of shock troops. The Blood Brothers were created by the Tzimisce and the Tremere Anti-Tribu. After the destruction of the Tremere Anti-Tribu, the ritual for their creation is lost, and the bizarre bloodline becomes quite rare. Harbingers of skulls, master necromancers and elders of great power, the Harbingers of Skulls have proven to be potent, if not morbid, allies of the sect. This is truly a terrifying bloodline searching for vengeance. The Salubri Anti-Tribu. These Anti-Tribu charged from the darkness, offering the Sabbat their swords. Also in search of vengeance against past slights, the Salubri Anti-Tribu sought all-out war against the Camarillah. The Serpents of the Light. With origins in Haiti, this heretical sect of the followers of Set rebelled against their parent clan and disavowed the mad blood god altogether. Now a real power gamer knows every clan and bloodline at their disposal. Thanks, Professor, and apologies for my omission. When the World of Darkness story wrapped in 2004, there was no survival for either sect. The Sabbat and the Camarillah consumed themselves from within, and the end comes for all vampires. And, depending on how you tell your story, the entire world ended. Well, at least until 2011. The 20th anniversary edition revived the World of Darkness, leaving the metaplot intentionally vague. Gehenna didn't happen, obviously, but other events are left optional. The term setting agnostic was a popular description in the game revision. Many of the bloodlines the professor mentioned remained in V20, often with minor updates to make them more accessible to new players. While books like Anarchs Unbound and Dreadname's Red List skirted modern canon, it wasn't until the release of Beckett's Jihad Diary that a new, pre-Gehenna history was presented. Perhaps most importantly, for tying together the V20 metaplot with the upcoming 5th edition, BJD planted the first seeds of the Gehenna War. You see, potent elders began to feel a supernatural pull towards the Middle East, and many young Sabbat members began defecting to the Anarch movement in record numbers. Eventually, only fanatical zealots remained within the sect. These elders began traveling the Middle East, feeding off combatants in the ongoing conflicts that were tearing up the region. Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition presents a modern Sabbat shrouded in mystery and conjecture, which is to say, really, very little information has been presented cohesively about the sect in modern nights. What we do know is this. First, the Sabbat seem to have utterly abandoned their territories with the rise of the Second Inquisition. Tut-tut, old chap. You failed to mention the Second Inquisition, and you consider yourself a scholar of the game? Oh, could you mind your own business, you basement-dwelling mouth breather? Why don't you go rub lotion on your mom's back or something? Yes, the world of darkness as of the 5th edition is embroiled in a full-scale inquisition, which deserves its own video. Maybe. We'll see. So stay tuned. Anyway, in the Fertile Crescent, the Sabbat, Camarilla, and another sect called the Ashira are engaged in a war, but few details on this have been provided. The stories seem to indicate that the Sabbat migrated en masse to attack the sleeping, waking, buried, who knows, antediluvians and the Methuselahs that served them. Again, details on the specifics have been scant. It's almost like they want us to buy more books. Now, if only they were published. One thing we do know for sure is that the Lasombra clan have pieced out and defected to the Camarilla. Because, insert reasons here. The sect got too hard to handle. The Lasombra already killed their founder. The Lasombra didn't kill their founder. The Lasombra are nothing but a lot of talk and a badge. You know, reasons. Other tidbits we've acquired along the way indicate that many Sabbat dioceses were simply wiped out by massive Second Inquisition offensives like the Dark Heart of the Sect, Montreal. While we await greater details about the Sabbat as a whole in the modern world of darkness, they're mostly a non-entity as of this video. So that's the crazy storied history of the Sabbat. Now, there's a ton of stuff I didn't cover here, but I tried to relate the most important events in the history of the sect so you can feel confident to run a game that includes them. Now, if you're going to play a member of the Sabbat, it's important to know a little bit more about the culture of the sect. First, a note on the information presented in this section. Because of the lack of information about the Sabbat in Modern Knights, i.e. V5, I will present info about the Sabbat in this section as they existed in earlier editions. I'll call this the classic version of the Sabbat. If new material is released after this video, which it's supposed to be, it's likely to invalidate some of this information. Well, anyways, let's get into the meat and potatoes. The Sword of Cain, as the Sabbat like to call themselves, modeled their hierarchy after a twisted version of the Catholic Church. Many of the positions in the Sabbat have a spiritual duty as well, and are expected to lead the perverted Rite. And it's pronounced Rite, but my stupid tongue always wants to say Rite of the sect. Why don't you just step back and let me do the whole video for you? Rite is the most important aspect of the sect and can be divided between Auctoritas Rite and Ignobilis Rite. The Auctoritas Rite are 13 rituals practiced by the whole of the Sabbat. These rituals bind and strengthen the sect through their tradition and significance. The Ignobilis Rite are rituals created by individual pacts. These Rite are typically performed by the pact during their esbats, or weekly meetings. While there are many common Ignobilis Rite, they tend to be colored by the traditions and protocols of the individual pact. For a complete list of Rite, read a book! Now finish your video, you plebe. Nice. Thanks, dude. So, when are you gonna make your own video again and get out of mine? Moving on. At the very bottom of the hierarchy, you'll find the so-called false Sabbat and Shovelheads. Shovelheads are the unfortunate victim of the sect's mass embrace practices used against their enemies. Humans are hastily embraced, smashed in the head with a shovel, and dropped into a mass grave along with other hapless victims. Those that dig themselves out are sent ravenous, frenzied, and confused at the enemies of the Sabbat, the Camarilla. In order to be proven worthy, recent embraces, or shovelheads that survive the shovel party, are put through creation rites. The specifics vary from pack to pack, but this rite is designed to strip away the fledgling's humanity and transform them into an adequately monstrous canine. Next, let's take a peek at the internal structure of the Sabbat. The essential unit of organization within the sect is the pack. A Sabbat pack typically consists of a handful of Canaanites, assembled together for various purposes, bound to each other through the Rite. This shared blood bond ensures a deep loyalty to one another within the pack. Two essential titles exist within a pack: Ductus and Priest. The Ductus is the leader of the pack. Think gang leader or tribal chieftain. For instance, David from the Lost Boys or Yondu from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are solid examples of the Ductus concept. The Ductus is typically the strongest or most cunning member of the pack. While the Ductus has authority over the pack, those that lord it too much often find themselves losing that power very quickly. The pack priest is the spiritual leader of the pack. They're like the Friar Tuck of the pack if Robin Hood and his merry men were bloodthirsty demons stalking the night. The priest officiates the rituals of the pack, and often creates new ignobilis rite as well. They're also the second in command to the Ductus, and act as leader if the pack Ductus is destroyed. While the priest is responsible for the spiritual well-being of the pack, the actual practices of the priest may vary. Sometimes the priest is a scion of a path of enlightenment, and other times the priest is just the one asshole least likely to frenzy. Honorable mention goes to the abbot as well. While some may be under the impression that the abbot is a position of power or influence in a given pack or diocese, it's not. The abbot is either a ghoul or a low-ranking Cainite whose job is to oversee a communal haven. It's not a position that imparts status nor authority.
"Get the food, abbot,"
is a command one might hear in the communal haven. Beyond the various packs that populate the typical diocese, you have the bishopric. Bishops advise the archbishop. Typically, the bishops preside over a single aspect of the diocese. The archbishop is one part warlord, one part spiritual leader, most closely analogous to the Camarilla prince. However, the archbishop does not enforce traditions, i.e. the Masquerade, because the Sabbat don't care about no traditions. The archbishop has the unenviable task of advancing the Sabbat's agenda in a given city and making sure it doesn't fall into utter chaos in the process. And then we have Templars, which serve as bodyguards to bishops and other powerful leaders of the sect. Templars act in a martial capacity for the leaders they serve, often doling out punishment and judgment on their leaders' behalf. The Priscus serve as advisors to high-ranking Sabbat authority. They are generally influential elders of the sect that rise to the position over time. Nobody assigns the Prisci, and they have no formal power in the sect. Regardless, they are respected advisors and mentors of the Sword of Cain. Cardinals oversee large geographic areas and coordinate the affairs of the sect in those regions. Cardinals are like the regional managers of the Sabbat world. You hardly ever see them, but when they come to town, you know there's going to be upheaval. The cardinals act as the point of communication between the bishops and archbishops of the various dioceses in their territory and the regent. The regent is the ultimate authority of the sect. This Cainite rules the sect from the Sabbat capital in Mexico City. No election empowers the regent. Only the most cunning and powerful in the Sword of Cain have seized the power for themselves, always after the destruction of the previous regent. The Sabbat is a chaotic, anarchical hurricane of conflicting ideas, agendas, and clans. While the Octoritas Rite go a long way towards keeping the sect somewhat unified, the Sword of Cain is rife with factionalism. The following are a quick rundown of the major factions in the Sabbat. Bordering between factions and semi-autonomous subsects, the two largest and most influential factions in the Sabbat are the Inquisition and the Black Hand. Not to be confused with the Mortal Inquisition, the Sabbat Inquisition hunt down and destroy Cainites in the sect who fall into infernalism or apostasy, like trafficking with demons or jumping on the pro-Lilith Bahari bandwagon. They operate with impunity, accusing at will and delivering punishment as they see fit. The Black Hand act as the secret military arm of the sect. Also operating with great independent authority, the Black Hand serves the Sabbat with extreme loyalty. Many claim that the Black Hand kept the sect together during the first two Sabbat civil wars. Members from either faction are forbidden membership in the other, and the rivalry between these subsects is well known in the Sabbat. There are several other factions that are more like political ideologies within the Sabbat rather than organized groups that serve a specific role, like the Black Hand or the Inquisition. The Loyalists claim that the only way to be a loyal Sabbat is to be free from any and all authority, save the one they impose upon themselves. The status quo. Well, the status quo are just that. This faction likes things the way they are, and they aren't looking to make any sweeping changes to the landscape of the Sabbat. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The moderates see the current Sabbat as a quagmire of rules and regulations. While not as extreme as the loyalists, the moderates are still likely to question foolish leadership and rules. The ultra-conservatives see Gehenna just around the corner. The Lasombra and the Zemis that populate this faction favor authoritarian, centralized leadership, monomacy, and preparation for war. They see the Sabbat as a military force that must be forged for the impending apocalypse. The Orthodoxy faction has risen to prominence in recent years. These religiously obsessive Cainites advocate a greater dedication to sect rite and the veneration of the priest to greater authority within the sect. Way up here. Alrighty, true Sabbat. That's it for now. If people are interested, I may do a video down the road that details more about the inner workings of the sect, including the rite that the sect venerate. If you liked this video, subscribe for more. And be on the lookout, coming soon, for everyone's favorite beautiful monsters, the Camarilla. Ganoosh. Because... Wait, and it's this, it's crazy, it's crazy, 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 crazy. Regardless. It's pretty cool, huh? Yes, of course, you're terrible and you're stupid and I hate you. There are several other factions that are kind of more... There are several other factions. Oh, my ass. The status quo.